This is a free sample of the book How to Talk to 9's and 10's by Cairo Copeland. The first half of the book is posted right here on YouTube, free for everyone to listen to. If you like this content and want to hear or read the rest of it, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/talk. The book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/talk.
Chapter 5. How to never run out of things to say. Now you're past small talk, and what do you do now? She's actually engaging in a conversation with you. Before you get those jitters of, holy shit, a hot girl is talking to me, what do I do now? What do I say? Help! Check out this chapter. I got your back. After you escape the awkward tension of trying to open her, you find yourself wanting to avoid ever going back to an awkward moment at all costs. The mistake most guys will make is to speak about anything at all just to keep the conversation going. They think that the longer the conversation, meaningful or not, the better the chance they stand at getting her. But really, you can have one that's 30 minutes or less and have a better chance than the guy that spent the last 2 hours yakking her ears off and annoying her to tears. However, the longer the conversation, the more ideal it is for you because you want to be in the presence of 9's and 10's for a very long time. If for no better reason, they offer you something better to look at than what you see everywhere else. This is where the fear of running out of things to say sets in. This fear works its black magic like hypochondria. Once you start to worry about running out of things to talk about, you stop focusing on directing the conversation further and do hit a dead end with nowhere to go. What if you had a list of things to say? What if you had a list of things you should look for in a conversation? Things you hope to find out? And what if those things were things she likes talking about? Even better, if they were things that made her feel more emotionally connected to you. Lastly, it's a long list, but not impossible to remember. Wouldn't that help? Lucky for you, I made that list. Find out her interests first. The great mistake is to dive into conversing with women and then bore them to death. This happens mostly because guys have no idea what women do like to talk about. They only have a false idea of what they think women like talking about. This is shit like gossip, fashion, celebs, travel, parties, and drama. Only some women, and a very small minority I might add, like to talk about this crap. The correct course of action is to find out what's interesting to her first. Ask, hey, are you into Marvel movies? Before going on about them. That way, if she's not, you're not going to bore her to tears when you don't shut up about them. The reality is that women are human beings with their own likes, interests, and preferences. As you are going deeper into the conversation, actively search for things she likes. Sometimes you may find that it's something you know very little about, and that's okay. There's still a way to discuss it with her. For example, I'm completely dumb when it comes to yoga. The worst mistake I can make when talking to a woman that's all into it is to recite some facts I know about yoga and attempt to show her that she can talk to me about that. Instead, what I want to focus on is what she likes best about yoga, why she likes it. Remember, you want to find out why without straight up asking why. I don't know anything about horses, so I don't pretend to know anything about them when I talk to a woman that's really fond of horses. But what I do know so far is that they are special to her, and I want to uncover exactly why. She will make a deeper connection with a man that goes to that level with her on what she loves than she will with a guy that knows all about the subject factually. If she isn't into it, find out what she is into. You ask, do you like Marvel movies? She may say something like, yeah, sometimes. That indicates to me that she isn't all that into it. She's just saying she is because it's a big part of pop culture right now and you're kind of thought of as a weirdo if you don't like them. So you should divert to something else. What you are looking for is a subject that gets her to light up with energy. That is the subject you want to stick with. However, there's a right way and a shitty way to do this. The shitty way is to keep asking, do you like this? Do you like that? Running down a never-ending list until you hit something that she does like. The right way to do this is to ask what she doesn't like about said thing. You don't sound all that into Marvel movies. This isn't very common, so I'm intrigued. What is it that they don't do for you? Another example. You. Have you traveled anywhere interesting or plan to? Her. No, I never really got the travel bug. You. You poor thing. So what do you do to get new stimulation in your life so it isn't the same old thing all the time? Here she is saying travel doesn't interest her, so any awesome travel stories you have is going to bore the snot out of her. The right thing to do is to frame the next question to suggest she's uncool if she doesn't have a good answer. You. What do you do for fun? Her. I work and go to school. I don't have time for fun. You. But what then do you do to expand your world? How do you keep life from getting routine and mundane? She has to say something more interesting now to avoid looking lame. This compels her to invest more in the conversation. That way, she's incited to present herself as someone worth getting to know. When someone doesn't understand, relate, or like a topic you've brought up, dump it. Sometimes you put up substantial questions or information, but do not get substantive responses back. Again, it's just the nationwide epidemic of low social IQ. Perhaps you've run into this scenario or something like it before. You. Did you see the big game last night? Her. Yeah, I was at a party for it, but I didn't really pay attention. You. It was awesome how they came back at the last minute. Her. Yeah, it must have been great for them. You. The officiating was horrible, though. They almost lost the game over some really bad calls. Her. It was their lucky night. This conversation is not personal. It's superficial. It didn't end until long after it should have died. To stay on a dead subject makes it feel like the two of you have nothing to talk about, thus nothing to connect on. That's when she wants to bail. Instead, take this approach. You. Did you see the big game last night? Her. Yeah, I was at a party for it, but I didn't really pay attention. You. Oh, what had your eye instead? No bragging. An old PUA tactic is the DHV, or display of higher value. Back then, PUAs encouraged you to say shit like you're busy on certain nights going out with your bros or running your business. The hope was that she'd get the idea that you were successful and highly valuable. This no longer works and comes across as bragging. A display of higher value only works when they are subtle, or when she has to beat them out of you, or discovers them on her own. Suppose you drove a BMW, but you never told her, nor showed her. The day she finally found out that you drove that vehicle, she's even more impressed by you than if you picked her up in it on the first date, which you insisted on picking her up for. It's equally as bad when you try to indirectly pump up your value. They see right through it. If she already liked you, you're bragging your way out of bed with her. Even if the bragging points are true and she believes them, what could happen is she ends up feeling she's not in your league, so she falls into an auto-rejection state. If she didn't already like you, bragging just makes her take you less and less seriously. Instead, focus on the fundamentals of allure. Things like your walk, your voice, your eye contact, your energetic personality, movements, facial expressions, comfort with yourself, sexy vibes, and when you have these down, you don't have to try hard to be impressive. But even better than bragging is deflecting. What if she straight up asks you what you do for work, and you're a CEO or a physician, but don't want to tell her that? Saying it this early will sound braggy and might set off her auto-rejection before she even gets a chance to know you. The right thing to do is deflect it. Work, you say? Oh, I don't do that. Or you could tell her you have a lesser job. Joke about working at McDonald's or the gas station. As long as you say it in a joking manner, they won't jet out of there. Personally, I would tell them I'm a stripper, because I do know how to do pole for fitness. So if they ever asked me to prove it, and there was a pole or something close by, I could divert entirely to that. Or say you have a joke job like the janitor at an adult movie theater, or the office ergonomics inspector. Whatever you say, get her wondering about you. The more you can make her wonder, the more she'll think about you. Get her doing most of the talking. To get her to talk about the things she enjoys most, you need to get her doing most of the talking. This will require active listening from you to feed the conversation back to her. The goal isn't to
talk to women. It's getting them to talk to you. Because the more she talks, the more invested in the conversation she becomes. You do this by demonstrating and understanding her. Oh God, the traffic here is horrible. You. So you don't like this town, huh? Her. No, I love my city. It's just that the traffic here sucks. This is a mistake that many guys make, and it frustrates both him and her. Sometimes what a woman says is not a symptom of a deeper feeling. Rather, it's just the first set of words to come to her mind that describe what she's feeling in the moment. The problem is that while she speaks, a guy tries to formulate in his head how he'll respond. Instead of just reiterating, which will get you far, the guy is trying to go the extra step and interpret. While women often use code language, they're not seeking your interpretation, just like how they're never seeking a solution to their problem when they bitch about it. You've probably noticed whenever a woman is bitching about a problem, the last thing she wants you to do is offer a solution to it. All she really wants is to have someone listen to her bitch and agree with her on it. If you offer a solution, you take away from her the ability to get the high she acquires from bitching. I'm not agreeing with or condoning women for this behavior. I didn't make women. This is just the way they are, and you'll do best to accept them, even if it's incredibly stupid. When she feels the need to correct or clarify, she gets the idea you don't understand her. This results in her losing interest in you because she feels the two of you don't connect. So many men make women correct them constantly in conversation when attempting to try to build an emotional connection. Two things you want to abstain from, despite how tempting and seemingly in your nature it is to do, are making assumptions and attempting to guess what she means. That will fuck up whatever potential there is for a connection. When you're unsure what she means, but guess anyway, her. Ugh, can't wait for this family thing to be over. Him. So you don't like spending time with your family? Making an assumption is drawing something that she didn't say from what she did say. Her. Let's leave those vines growing on the house. I like the way they look. Him. You must be a very earthy person then. I write this over and over again. Women want a guy that just gets it, and also just gets her. When you make these statements, you show her that you don't get her. But here's the good news. It's much easier to actively listen than it is to guess or assume you know. Ironically, this is what allows you to translate woman speak from bullcrap to English. When you're experienced with this and hear a woman say she'd love to quit her job and travel the world, you'll know she doesn't really hate her job or particularly love travel. She's just longing for some adventure and something new. The wrong way again. Her. I can't stand all these stupid people. Him. Yeah, it's really annoying when I have to repeat things over and over again and they still don't get it. Her. That's not what I meant. Him. What? It doesn't annoy you too? Her. You're not listening. The correct way to look at these statements is as if they are onions that need to be peeled. There is a process to it. First, she tells you something that she feels. You then ask her why she feels that way. Finally, you tell her that she feels that way because of what she told you. It's incredibly simple and very unflattering to women when you really think about it, but it works wonders on them. Her. I can't stand all these stupid people. You. I can see you're really set off. How come? Her. Because there could be so much progress if they drop their willful ignorance. You. Progress like? Her. Innovations, charity work, even creating great art? You. Okay, so if people were less willfully ignorant, they'd use more of their potential brain power to make the world a better place. Her. Exactly. In that short time, you've shown her that you understand her belief and why she believes it. This is done by simply feeding it back to her with paraphrasing. All you need to do is actively listen and repeat what you've heard. The process again. She tells you something she feels. You ask her why she feels that. Then you tell her she feels that way because of what she told you. Ask good questions. Ask about how they got into doing what they're currently doing. People love to talk about this one. Spark some curiosity with your questions in the sense that you ask something that makes her wonder why you asked it. The trick is that you must have a good reason to ask it to begin with. You ask her something strange and different to make her wonder where it's going, such as, let me ask you this, would you ever date a guy that's obsessed with rope? This question comes from a real-life client of mine. He actually participates in a kink lifestyle practice that involves tying rope on people, not so much for bondage, but for artful design. It's the Japanese craft of shibari. And for some reason, women absolutely love it. But when he asks this question, it feels very out of the blue and one-off. But that's good, it gets their attention. But the important part is that he follows up with something equally as powerful as the setup, which is the revelation, as it's probably news to her, that there is a whole underground lifestyle in society based on tying people up with rope. If you say you asked because you're just curious, that makes you look random, strange, and a letdown. But when you tell her it's because there's a whole culture centered around rope, that's something else entirely. Also, you'll do best to avoid the cliched, typical deep questions. I can feel a great disturbance in the force from right where I'm sitting when a woman rolls her eyes at you for asking, "If you could have anyone as a dinner guest, who would it be?" She's thinking, oh God, another one of these guys that read that somewhere and is trying it out on me. The better thing to do is morph and mutilate those cliched questions so they come out different from how they would expect to hear them. For example, a very cliched question is, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? But what I find to be a more telling question is, what would you do if you knew you would fail? Because that is something they must truly enjoy. Deep probe every good subject. The concept of deep probing is a whole chapter unto itself, which will be thoroughly explained on how to do it. I bring it up now because it definitely belongs on the list of things to accomplish when talking to 9's and 10's. You want to dry up a vagina? Then do this. You. Where are you from? Her. I'm from X. Where are you from? You. I'm from Y. Her. Cool. You. So how do you spend your time? Here's another one of those strictly factual conversations that feels like a bad job interview. When you learn useful information you can expand on, don't piss it away. These are things like work, school, hobbies, passions, goals, dreams, experiences, hopes, fears. It only takes a few small questions to dive deeper into each of them. When did you start doing that? How did you get into that? Where is that going to take you? If you aren't into that, why do you still do it? Will you do it forever? What's holding you back from what you really want to do? Have a reason. Some women, especially the 9's and 10's, are very experienced with being approached and hit on, so they have developed autoresponders to push you aside. They've done it to many guys before, so why should she stop for you? An example of this is if she doesn't like her job and you ask her why she's still doing it, she says something like, "Well, I have to pay the rent." Most guys will just concede defeat here. Instead, you want to use greater knowledge of human nature to your advantage. What you could do is say something like, "Well, you know, life is short, and when you look back on it, do you really want to be doing what you're doing just to pay the rent?" The idea is to make her think as though the microscope is on her, that she's not living the life she could be. Turn it back to her. Instead of bragging in an answer, kick the question back to her, especially if the question she's asking sounds like one she's asking to screen you out or qualify you. Do not answer it like an interview. This is not the time to show off your value. Instead of, "Let me see how impressive I can be like, "Let me see how soon I can get her talking about herself again." Someone is always showing off while the other is always assessing. Better to be the judge than the judged. An example from my cold approach days is this. Her. "What do you do?" Me. "I do many things. What are you most interested in knowing?" Her. "For work." Me. "I try to avoid it all I can. How about you?" Her. "You must be doing something to make money." Me. "I make money from the internet, but it's not as interesting as most people think. Certainly not as interesting as," and then I go back to something she said earlier. She asked a question about something because she is interested in the subject more so than you. So now you give her a chance to talk about something she's so interested in by turning it back to her. Make her work for the information. In the same spirit, you don't want to spill out answers right when she asks for them. This makes it feel too much like a job interview again. Her. "What do you do for work?" You. "I work at McDonald's." Her. "Are you serious?" You. "Yep, I work the fryers." Her. "Well, I didn't expect that." You. "No, not really. That's just something I say to make sure you're not a gold digger." Now she's more interested in what you really do, but still play around. Her. "So what do you really do?" You. "I drive a septic truck." Her. "Oh, how is that?"
You. Shitty, but I managed to hold it in. Keep going until just before it's no longer funny. Because she needs to work for this information, she finds you more interesting. The more work she does to get the answer is an investment she makes. Because she's made an investment already, she ends up wanting to believe she made a good one. So she's more likely to stick around, believing that you are this very interesting guy for her to learn more about. Do this instead of spilling the beans and giving up the farm right away. This also allows you to measure her interest in you. Downplay your greatness. Ever notice how Warren Buffett, a white billionaire, is loved by the public, but Donald Trump, also a white billionaire, is horrendously hated? While both are rich, successful guys, one of them is more vocal about it. A big part of what makes you likable when you're successful is your ability to keep quiet about it. Success, even well-deserved and hard-earned, is best kept under a tight lid. Why do lotto winners go broke fast? Because they flash their winnings to be seen with it. They haven't learned how to use it properly. Whereas Warren Buffett downplays his lifestyle. He doesn't piss away money on frivolities, luxuries, and a lavish lifestyle even though he could. The main thing to deduce from this is to be chill. Don't make big deals out of your accomplishments and all that's great about you. Also, do not be so easy to excite or so eager to flash your achievements. Women can see right past this. They have a sense for what kind of guy you are when it comes to these matters and will classify you in 3 ways. A guy with no value. B, a guy with newfound value that he can't shut up about. C, then there are guys who are laid back, enjoy success, but don't make a big deal about it. There's a certain humility level that's optimal for this. If she says, "Wow, you're really good at," just say, "Not really, just been doing it long enough." She'll know that's not true, and she'll appreciate the understatement more so than any other response. Let her discover your value. So instead of being quick to spew out all your greatness, let her discover it her own way, on her own time. Most guys never think of timing or placement appropriateness. What are you more impressed with? A woman who blurts out after 10 minutes, "I'm a model and I'm rich," or one you find out about much later and without her telling you? The more you make her dig for info, the more profound the effect it has, because the questioner has no idea how much more value exists beneath the surface. A violinist, entrepreneur, or PhD is a very impressive person, but if they blurt that out up front, you might assume that's the most interesting thing about them. Then you don't attempt to make any effort to learn anything else about them because you believe you have already heard the best. If you had to investigate to find that out, that makes you wonder what other interesting things you might uncover. Women fantasize about figuring out a man all on their own. They like to believe that their own feminine intuition is some sort of superpower that will see past the stoic and stone cold. When they feel they have learned something interesting about you that way, they get a high from that moment. Further, she falls for you in her head before she ever does in real life. This means you want to make her wonder and keep her constantly thinking about you. A word about complimenting. One of the most detrimental things a guy can do is compliment a woman on her appearance and do it in an overly flattering manner. Now, if you've already read Don't Be Sympathetic, you already know not to do that. But still, how do you let her know you're interested in a non-simpish way? The idea is to make a sincere compliment while also making it clear you're not doing it in hopes of getting something back. You don't want to appear that you're flattering her to get into her pants. Flirting always triumphs over flattering. But what if she's ditzy, as some 9's and 10's will be, and doesn't pick up on your flirting? You have to spell it out to her sometimes. The best course of action is to compliment her on something that she has control over. Instead of just telling her she's beautiful, since she was just kind of born that way, tell her you like a specific choice she made about her appearance. This could be something like the way she matched her outfit or did her hair that day. But what's far better than complimenting her appearance is to praise things that relate to her mind, such as liking an idea she comes up with, validating a point of view she has, the good work that she's done or created. The more work a person has put into something, the happier they will be about being complimented on it. Find something that you legitimately admire about her and explain to her
why you like it. Or, if you both have the same opinion on something, tell her why you think it's the right opinion, because that's a good way to get a connection made. Something a lot of guys do that always goes poorly is to say something good about something you think they may feel bad about. Often it's those curvy, busty babes that are self-conscious about their weight, and he says something along the lines of liking curvy girls. When you do this, it only reinforces their insecurity because it was apparent enough for you to notice it. Context matters a lot, and part of that is who is saying it. A person can take the compliment from one guy much differently from how they take it from another. Her view of him will factor into how she views what he says. If she's already interested in you, what you say about her is always appreciated, but if she's creeped out by you, it will create uncomfortable tension. The best way to avoid any discomfort on her part is to not be emotionally invested in how positively she reacts to what you say. That way, it does not seem transactional, where you are hoping to receive attention or anything in return. Do not leave a pause in the conversation waiting for her to acknowledge what you've said. That's where the awkward tension comes from. Instead, keep talking right on to the next thing. Many guys spew out praise and worship, hoping that the woman will like him, date him, have sex with him in return. When you think about it, that has to be the most disproportionate exchange ever. That's why women don't go for simps. Instead, continue on by asking about whatever it is you're highlighting. What's the story with her tattoo, earrings, rings, necklaces, any noticeable scar, dress, etc. Comfort with silence. Silences can get very awkward quickly, but when used appropriately, they can be very powerful. Most guys that the 9's and 10's are hit on by are the type that spew everything out as quickly as they can. They feel if they stop to even take a simple breath, the woman will lose interest in them, or think that pause is her chance to escape. This shows her he's afraid she'll dip out on him because it's probably happened to him before. But when you use pauses, it shows her you're calm, confident, in control, feel no need to rush or be impressive. This is the speech pattern of a dominant man because he's used to people listening to him by submission of their own will. Thus, he never has to rush or interrupt. The more you pause, the more you can cause people to pay attention to what you say or are about to say. They sense something important is coming. Don't let them down.
Thank you for listening to this free sample of the book How to Talk to 9's and 10's by Cairo Copeland. If you enjoyed it and want to hear or read the rest, or want to listen to it free of ads, visit reinventideal.com/talk, where the book is available on Kindle, paperback, and Audible at reinventideal.com/talk.